Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. Today I'm going to show you guys how to install your chain and sprockets on your motorcycle. There's a common service item on your motorcycle, if your motorcycle has a chain of course, and with a few tools, a little patience, you guys can do this at home. It's nothing major, it's just a few steps in a right sequence and it's easy peasy, nothing to worry about. So first of all, I would like to apologize that this video is a little hatch-patch. When I shot this video on the bike, of course, I lost some footage, so I had to reshoot a little bit. So I apologize for that, but still the message is still there and I'm still showing you guys how to do it. So I'm going to show you guys the chain and sprocket that I chose for my bike. There are tons of different possibilities, brands, qualities out there. So I use the JT sprocket. They are regular steel sprockets, nothing fancy, they work great. The original sprocket that was on the bike was a steel sprocket, so I didn't change anything. Same with the front, steel sprocket, and I also used the JT for the front. For my chain I used the DID brand. I really like this. It's high quality stuff, it works pretty good. It does poor street, but you can use it on anything. And this is the X-Ring, so this is the upgrade from the O-Ring. These are supposed to last pretty long, so I went with this. Very good stuff. Here you can see my old chain. It was ready to go. 10,000 miles on it. It was not terrible, but it was not the best, so it was definitely time. But I want to show you guys, I don't know if you can see that on this video here, but actually the teeth are bent, so this sprocket was already on its way out. So always change chain and sprocket together. And this is the rest piece of the chain, because my chain was longer. I usually buy them longer so I can make sure that they fit. And this actually spare piece, I'm going to get a couple of master links for that. I'm going to put that in my toolbox, and you never know. I'm out in the woods, I have a problem, I need to fix my chain, I'm going to have this with me. So it's not a bad idea to have a little bit of extra chain with you. So when it comes to sprockets, you basically have three different options. Steel is what I got. This is what will last you the longest, but it's also the heaviest. Next option is aluminum. Obviously it's going to be way lighter, but it's not going to last as long. So the advantage obviously of being lighter, it's for racing application. The less rotating mass, the faster bike's going to go, all that. Is it a huge noticeable amount of gain? I'm going to say probably not. If you are an enduro rider and you are in extreme hardcore conditions, I can see that. On an adventure bike, not really. And the third option here is actually a combination of both, where the inside hub is out of aluminum to reduce the weight, and the outside is steel, so it's a two-piece design basically. So they try to keep the weight down but still have the steel outer ring for longer duration. That's also the most expensive way to go. As I said, I stay with steel. It works good, it's doable. I also did not change my gearing. So if you want to experiment with your gearing, you can change sprocket sizes. So for example, in the rear, a bigger sprocket will give you more torque, more takeoff, but less top end. If you go smaller, it's going to go the other way around. You're going to have less takeoff, but more top end. And you can also do the same thing with the front sprocket. And that's usually what people do, because it's easier to change the front sprocket than taking the rear wheel out to do the rear sprocket. For example, if you go with a bigger front sprocket, you're going to have a little bit less takeoff, but you're going to have higher top end speed. Or you can lower your cruising RPM. That's what many people do. So on my bike, I'm happy the way it is, so I did not change any of this. So this is stock gearing, back with steel sprockets and a good chain, and good to go. So before we start on this, one thing I do want to say, a common, I won't say mistake or myth I hear people saying that they have to buy a jack to lift up their bike in order to adjust a chain. And I don't know where that came from, but that's completely bollocks. You don't need nothing of that. And it makes not even sense, because when you lift up your bike off the ground, your swing arm is going to go down, and obviously your chain slack is going to be different than when the bike sits on the ground. And I always tell people, well, when you ride your bike, is it floating in the air or is it actually on the pavement? And they're like, no, it's down on the ground. I'm like, well, then you should adjust your chain slack on the ground. So this is one thing that I hear quite often. I'm just shaking my head. I'm like, makes no sense. Nobody could ever explain to me why, but always somebody said or somebody heard or whatever. So don't do that. Adjust your chain slack on the ground to get the right chain slack in. Also, something to keep in mind, once you put your new chain on and it's adjusted correctly, everything is good. After, I'm going to say 200 miles, just recheck your slack, because the chain, since it's brand new, it's going to stretch a little bit at the beginning, so you might have a little bit more slack, and you might need to readjust that. It's a 50-50 deal. I've seen chains where I put them on and they're good for a good while, and some they do give a little bit. It really doesn't take much to just double check your chain after a couple hundred miles, and if it has too much slack, then just give it a little adjustment. That's something I see a lot of people, they kind of forget it. They just throw the chain on and send it, you know. So here's the final product. You can see chain is on. I already rode this about 200 miles, so I checked again my slack and that was all good. So this is all good to go now, and now every once in a while I just check my slack. So since I have to take the shifter off and I like the shifter position where it's at, what I'm doing now is I'm going to take a marker and I'm going to mark it right there where that space is. Just like this. And now I can take this off out of my way and I know exactly where to put it back, and I'm done. So as you can see, I have the cover off now, and this is the big nut that we need to loosen first. If we do anything else and we forget this guy, then we'll be in trouble. So these nuts are usually pretty tight. An impact definitely help. If you don't have one, get a cheap one. If not, ask your neighbor, you know. I'm pretty sure you know someone that has one of these in his garage. Wow, that was tight. All right, now we got the nut off. Now this should move, which it does. Perfect. So with the counter sprocket nut off, now I'm gonna grind down one of the rivets. So this is done now. This is now easier than when the wheel is out. And when I've done this, then actually we might just break the chain, use the tool, get the chain out of the way, and then I'm going to remove the rear wheel so we can change the rear sprocket. And with the chain off, then it's always easy to do the front sprocket. So I'll be using my electric belt sander. That's a pretty handy tool. You can use a cutoff wheel or a grinder as well. I just use this because I have it and it's pretty easy. But before you use your power tools, you need safety goggles and a pair of working gloves. So I'm going to take the tool and I'm just going to grind one of these rivets down, and then we can use the tool to push it out. So as you can see, I grinded this nice and flush. This is how it looked before. This is what we got now. And now I'm going to get the chain breaker and set it all up, and we're going to push that little pin out of there so we can take the chain off. So this is the chain breaking tool. Let me show you the whole case. It comes with different adapters, different sizes, and you can get those anywhere. Amazon, Harbor Freight. This is pretty universal stuff. You don't need nothing high-end, high-tech. This is a cheapo of Amazon. Pretty much anyone will do. So the idea is that I go in with this tool and that this pin pushes out that pin out of the chain and basically breaking the chain. That's where the term comes from. So I hope you can see this. This is pretty much what it's going to look like. And I'm going to turn that nut out there, and it's going to push that little rod in there, and it's going to push out the... So I'm going to turn my tool now. That tool is going to push that inner rod to the chain, and on the other side, the pin is going to fall out pretty much. That's the idea here. That's how you break the chain. So let's see what we got. Oh, yep, there it goes. So you can see now it's going in. That means it's pushing the pin out on the other side. And I'll be using the same tool and to shorten my new chain since it's too long. All right, now it went all loose, and that means my pin is out. So we turn this all the way back so we can get this back out of here. Take it out. Let me show you guys. So the pin is in here right now. Boom, there we go. So this is the pin that's used to hold that chain together. And we just pushed that guy out of there. So it was sitting in here, and that tool pushed it out to the rear. That means now my chain, ta-da, comes apart. There we go. We officially broke the chain now. So next step, I'm just gonna pull the chain out of it pretty much. And there we go, one old crappy chain. So with the chain out of the way, this guy now just plops off, just like this. And then we can go ahead and just set the new one on it. There we go. Washer and nut. So I'm just going to set that on right now. Obviously, we cannot tie it up because it's free spinning. So we do this last. Since this was the first thing we did, this is the last thing we're going to do. That means next now I'm going to take the wheel out so I can replace the wheel sprocket. So on the Tenere, that rear axle nut is a 27 mil. So it's easy as that. We're just going to pop this guy off. Just like that. Now I'm going to jack up the bike so we get the wheel up in the air, and then we push the axle out, and then I'm gonna have my wheel out there. So when you take a wheel out, in most bikes, the caliper bracket is part of the spacer where the axle comes to, so all this is loose now. And when you put the bike back together, you're going to need to make sure that all this aligns, that the caliper is sitting back on the rotor, and that this is all where it's supposed to be. Out of the way. Take the space out so we don't lose it. Take this space out as well. All right, and there we are. So I got my wheel out, just put it on the floor. I'm going to grab my new sprocket real quick. I'm just going to set it on top just to make sure that everything looks like it's going to align. Sprocket. Beautiful. So let me show you. So what I did here real quick is I just took my new sprocket, I set it on top here, and I can see that all my holes align, and I see that the diameter is the same. That means this is going to be the right sprocket for this bike. And this is just an easy way to quickly check that it's going to work before you take all the bolts off. So this bike here has a few washers and a plate on top of that. So we're going to make sure that we put all this back on here. So we pop off the old and we put on the new. Beautiful. So this goes back on here. Make sure all the washers are on. And I drop a nut every once in a while. No big deal. So these, you want to make sure that these are tight. I mean, you don't need a 5-foot extension on this, but be sure to torque them down well. You don't want any of these to come loose. All right, so I'm going to put this all together. Very important, since I have the axle out already, we're going to clean it and lube it up. Grease. It's very important so the axle doesn't rust. It doesn't rust to the bearings. You know, we ride to sand, to water, to mud. A lot of stuff gets in there, and this is now a great opportunity to just clean that up. All right, I got my axle all lubed up. I'm going to make sure to put the spacers back in there. Don't forget that. And then I'm going to put this all back together. Oof, this one was fighting me. And something's binding up, so I have to see what's going on here. What's the problem here? It's supposed to be, there we go. All right. So I was binding up because my caliper was not correctly in the position where it was supposed to be. So I got this now, and now it slides back and forth where it's supposed to be. All right, next we're gonna open these adjusters and move them all the way in so the wheel can go all the way to the front as far as possible, and then we're gonna put the chain on and measure where we need to go. And you do that on both sides, obviously. So with the adjusters all the way in, I can move my wheel all the way to the front now. And now I just snug that axle a little bit. It doesn't need to be tight, I just want it to stay put in place. There we go. So now I want to cheat the so now I'm going to feed the chain in, and then we see how much I have to cut off it. All right, I got the chain all in. It's over both sprockets, and let me show you what the issue now is. Well, not the issue, but what was expected. So as you can see, my chain is way too long. I got all this left. That means I need to break this chain now in order to get it to the correct size. As you can see, the chain is a little bit sloppy, but my adjuster is all the way to the front, and I cannot move the chain one more step. So this is the closest I can get. That means now when you do this here, you need to make sure that you don't cut it on an outside link. You need two inside links in order to insert that master clip. If you do an inside or just an outside, then you might have to do it again. All right, so now it's time to shorten this. And I'm going to do this the same way with the belt sander like I did before. So I'm going to grind down this rivet right here, this one, so I can get this outer link out of the way, and then we have space to put our master link in. So again, we're going to need safety goggles, gloves, and the power tool. And just like before, I'm going to use the chain breaker tool to break the chain and get this piece out of there. All right, as you can see now, my chain is cut to the perfect length. So now we prep the master link and we put that in. So with the master links, you get O-rings and you get a little bit of loop. So make sure that you use all that stuff. Get it out of the package. Open the loop. So what you want to do is you want to loop these guys, and then you put them one side. A bit more loop. And another ring on this side. So this is now in, ready to put into the chain. Always important is you want to put your master link in from the rear, because if you put it in from the front, it's very difficult to put the clip in. So what you do is you go to here, try to not lose. Oh, still ring on there. Boom, there you go. So now the master link is in from the back side. There you go, there you can see it. This is the side view. And now we're going to pop up the front part. So this is a top plate. Always make sure you got the numbers or the letters to the outside. And in many cases, and this is the case, oh, hold on. No, I make a mistake. We need the O-rings first. So same deal, lube up the O-rings, pop them on there. Oh yeah, you have greasy fingers doing this job, that's for sure. Clean them up. So now we got master link, we got 2 O-rings on the back, master link is in, we got the 2 O-rings on this side. Now we can put the plate on. But the plate doesn't just pop on like this. I mean, you can probably try with a plier, it has never worked for me. So what I do is I use the same chain breaker tool and I use just the rod to push this into position. I don't know if you can see that on camera, trying to get a little bit closer. But now I'm pushing the plate and squeezing it all together, all in one movement. Now I'm going to do the lower side. I'm going to go back up again. So you don't need to squeeze the hell out of it. All you need is to have enough space to get that clip in. That's really all you're shooting for here. All right. So this is what we're looking at now from the side profile. You can see the plate is now on, and clean that up. I don't know if you can see it on the video, but the little grooves in here, and this is where the clip is going in. And this is how it looks now. So now we insert the clip. It is a little bit important to have the right direction for the clip. So your wheel is going to turn this way, and you want to make sure that the C-clip, if it hits something, that it can't push it off. If you put it on this way and a rock hits it, then it's just going to push it off and you might have problems. But if you put it in this way with the opening facing the rear after that direction, then you are pretty safe. So I'm going to put this guy on here like this. And usually just a pair of pliers or something is usually enough. Somewhere I actually have the correct tool for that, but I don't know where it is and I don't feel like looking for it. So we just try to snap that on real quick. There it is. A little fight, but not too bad. So here we are. Now it's on. So chain is installed. So now I'm gonna tie down or tighten down the rear axle, then I'm gonna tighten up the front sprocket, and once all this is done, then I'm gonna do my chain adjustment on this. So what's happening now is I need to adjust my chain. This is now a little bit of a, not a dilemma, but it's different with every bike. This bike, I leave certain slack. You know, a street bike might have a different measurement, a dirt bike has a different measurement. So depending on what you bike, so depending on what type of bike you have, look it up online or look up in your manual. If you have a manual, that's going to tell you how much chain slack you have. This is a little bit of a custom setup here because I'm not using the chain slack that Yamaha recommends for this bike because I have an additional chain guide on it, and the Tenere is a little bit finicky with that. So one of the methods here is that you put a strap here and compress the suspension until all this is aligned, and then you leave it a little bit slack, and that's supposed to be the maximum tension point of that chain. So once you leave it a little slack there, then you'll be good on this particular bike. And the way to adjust your chain is following. So the way to adjust your chain is I just take a wrench and I turn this guy out, and it's going to slide the axle backwards, and it's going to take my chain slack out. So this is my adjuster, and you will see as I turn this out, you will see how the chain is going to start to lose its slack. See, now I got less slack than before. If I keep going, see, now it's tight. So again, every bike is different, but every bike should have a type of marking that you can do both sides the same. Like you can see all these little marks here, and you just pick a point on your swing arm, and then you count how many, like this, like lines, how many lines you got on this side, and then you do the same on the other side. And when you do your chain adjustment, you just gotta make sure that you do both sides equally. So you do one side and then the other side, and when you come back to this side, the chain might be too tight, so you need to loosen it again. It's a little bit dance back and forth until you get it right. You don't want too much tension on your chain, but you don't want too much slack, and you want to make sure that it's straight on both sides. That's very important. So as you can see, I used a ratchet strap to compress my suspension, and I put a ruler along with it to make sure that this is the widest point where the swing arm ever is going to be, because if it goes higher, the wheel will move a little bit forward if it goes lower as well. So I want the maximum stretch possibility for the chain, and this is what I achieved by literally compressing the suspension to that point. And and basically that looks like this. So I moved my adjusters. I'm on stripe number 4 on each side, and as you can see, I still have a little bit slack, but this is the tightest the chain ever gonna be. It doesn't matter how hard I ride, it doesn't matter if I jump or not, this will be the tightest it will ever be. So once I release the strap, the suspension is gonna go back where it's supposed to be, and then that's gonna be my chain slack. As you can see, the suspension relaxed now, so now the bike is back in its regular position, and now whatever I have now, this is my chain slack. But this is specific to this bike. You need to check on your bike, whatever you ride, if it's a dual sport or an adventure bike or a street bike or a cruiser, it doesn't matter what it is, every bike is a little bit different. So don't use this on just any bike. This is just my procedure for this particular bike. If I would do it now on my RM or my Husky or another bike, it would be a different deal. Alright guys, so that's basically it. This is your simple chain install. I'm not going to bore you with the reassembly now. Now I'm just going to adjust my chain, tie down my rear axle. I'm going to tie down that counter sprocket shaft nut, and then put my protection thingy back on there, and my gear shift and all that stuff. So you saw that when I took that apart. Alright guys, that's it for tonight. I hope you enjoyed that video. If you have any questions, shoot me a message. Always glad to help. This is stuff that you can do at home. Easy, simple, few tools, a little bit of patience. Just go at it. This is easy stuff. You don't need to pay me or anybody else to do this. This is simple stuff you guys can do at home. So again, if you have any questions, just hit me up and I gladly try to help you out. So if you like this type of content and you want to keep seeing what I do, Please consider subscribing and hit the like button. See you in the next one, and auf Wiedersehen.